Welcome to a Fantasy Fan Sportscast with Easy and Lou Landers. Now enjoy the show, but don't forget our safe word.
Welcome. It's a Wednesday night, 10 o'clock. Lenny Melnick, FantasySports.com, the Legend Sports Network. And that's right. The intro you heard there was me with Lou Landers. And I forgot that when me and Lou were doing a show together, we were supposed to have a safe word. And it's been a while since I've played that. But Lou, I know Chris had an issue at the last minute. And, and you hopped on here to help me answer a few questions. Welcome back to a Fantasy Fan Sportscast for the first time in a while. Are you there?
Easy. There? Thank you for having me. Yes, thank you for having me. Easy. This is just kind of a thing I'm doing today. Andrea messaged me about 15 minutes before the morning show and asked if I could come on and hang out with her for a while. So I did that. So just following suit, paying it back to you today as well. Pleasure to be here and excited to chat some football with you, man. It's been a while since Easy on a Sunday morning.
Right. And I can't wait. We should do sit start like just some random day for something, just because I miss those Sunday mornings together.
Just, what we should do? We can create like a fake NFL schedule.
Right.
And
Can we get like the new Madden game when it comes out and we'll set up something?
Exactly. Or what we could do? We could look at week 1 of the NFL schedule, just pretend everybody's healthy and do a start sit show.
There you go. All right. Well, like I said, Chris is working on his internet connection. That is the problem with internet radio. I mean, it's not 100%, if I'm not mistaken, I think the first show where I ran into trouble, my power went out one day, I think on a sit start show, remember? And I ended up doing it from my cell phone on a front porch while trucks were going by and everything.
Yeah,
but
that was back in the early days. The early days, you lost the power. And then we switched from, it was at Hangouts maybe at the time, to me running Mixler and you being on your cell phone on data in the backyard. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Right, because you weren't prepared for me. You weren't prepared for me not to be prepared. And that was fun. But yeah, it's been a while. But he is having internet problems. He's had to reset his router and some of that and whatever. Hopefully he'll pop back on, because I think all of our big fans out there were, Lou, I'm sure you've been following me and Chris. We're on episode 6 of creating the perfect fantasy football league settings. And this should have been the last show, because we were going to be doing, the final thing was the scoring, the actual breakdown of all the spots. We've done everything else. But I had something come up today that, football related. I needed some expertise because, again, I'm just a fan here. I need some expertise. But my league Sunday had its, my main league, let's say, my home league. We had our, summer meetings. I don't even know what you would really call it, our owner meeting and all that. And we did our drawing to see where we pick for where we draft. Does that make sense? We do
makes sense. Yes, makes sense. You are having your pre-draft draft.
Right. Our right, which is just a random, thing. And I've really always I have always kind of got I haven't had any real options. I've always been one of the last, so I've just, had like 2 choices. Well, this year I have the second pick, meaning I get to choose my spot, Technically, I already know now, because this morning, the gentleman who got pick number 1 chose to draft at spot number 1. So that leaves me.
That's not all that surprising.
No, leaves me.
Kind of expected that, didn't we?
Yeah, I kind of. So I got to pick either 2 through 12. That's where I'm at. 2 through 12. I have 24 hours. We kind of set a clock. Unless you have a good excuse, you have 24 hours to then notify the commissioner of when you want to pick. And if you don't by then you just get the next in line, which obviously would be pick number 2. So that's where we're at tonight. And I thought, since I had you on, you're my little, you're my expert. I have a Lou Landers fantasy draft book in my back pocket. I keep it all the time. So I wanted to go over.
Easy. And I mean, my mind's already flowing here.
Already flowing. A lot going on.
So
what's going on?
You said 12-team league.
It's a 12 team.
Choose as much as it would be nice to get, one of Barkley or Zeke or McCaffrey by picking number 2.
All right.
I probably, especially PPR, take number 12, and I'll tell you why.
Okay. No, wait a minute, Lou. For the fans out there, for the other fans like me, I think they need to know a little bit more about the league. It's PPR.
Go on.
It is a super flex league, so 2 quarterback. It is a keeper league with kind of strange rules. We don't keep anybody in rounds 1 and 2. So, round 1 and 2, everybody will be drafting, but after that, obviously there'll be good players mixed in that are taken. So that makes obviously a little difference. Now the thing that's crazy is there's the way our rules are, you jump up 2 spots. There's not a whole lot of big keepers out there. Kamara is one of the big, I think he gets kept in like the 10th, because the guy got him, his rookie year. But the important thing is my keeper, which I really don't have any, but one, I think. And so let's do this first. I can keep Damian Williams in the 8th. That's really the only thing. And I think right now he's going around the 3rd or 4th. And there's some people that think if he gets the job and is the main guy, he could be a round 1 or 2 type back. So I don't think it's bad to keep him in the 8th. I really have nothing else worth keeping. So I would have one keeper. It would be a running back, and it would be Damian Williams in the 8th. First of all, do you agree with keeping Damian Williams as an 8th round pick?
100%. Because to me, even if he doesn't get the job and he's splitting touches, he'll still return 8th round value in that offense with his pass catching ability that he showed last year. So 8th round, I mean, you could be getting a hell of a player, but even assuming health, of course, even at a floor, because he's splitting time with 2 or 3 guys, he's still going to return that 8th round value for you.
You say Carlos Hyde's really the main guy that he's kind of competing with, right? At the moment. I mean,
they have 2 rookies who they drafted, some of my Dynasty Football guys, the Dynasty Football 101 guys on Friday on the network, Ron and Dave, who were pretty high on these guys. I think they might be able to chip into some of the work in that backfield. But Damian Williams, most complete back, at least from a rushing and pass catching perspective, at least from what we saw last year from him in that offense.
The way they use him at the end. So that's my keeper. So that's where we're at. Now, a couple of things also. I picked 12th spot 2 years in a row. So I've always gone late over early. That's not that that's a big thing one way or the other, but also our waiver wire is a rollover thing. So if I pick 12th, I would have the first waiver wire spot and I can hold that for as long as I need it. So another advantage picking late. So kind of those are our rules. Now, I have mock draft already a lot today, moving around. And unfortunately, here's the bad point. Here's why I had you on tonight. I was agreeing early this morning. Me and you chatted a little bit. I was already saying probably going with 12. You immediately said 12. So give me your reasoning behind that to begin with.
So as much as 11 could be considered better than 12 because it's ahead of 12, after the first 4 picks, you could honestly arguably take anyone in the top 15 at 5 and be okay with it. There's a huge gap between 5 and 15, in my opinion, where any of them could be that good. So if you're drafting 11, then you're seeing 2 guys go between your next pick, 2 guys who you might really like, and you might end up realizing you should have taken that guy at 11 anyways because of how tight it is in those spots. Now, I don't know if either of these guys are going to be kept in your league formats, but in general, for those fans out there, for those people drafting in the 12 spot, I honestly am thinking right now, if I'm drafting 12, my target would be Michael Thomas, backed up by Juju Smith-Schuster back-to-back.
Okay. Never going to happen. I can't say in Pittsburgh, but I like where you're going. I do like that. I'm not a Juju guy, but I like that. I kind of agree with you. My argument is, here's where I'm at. I would either do 2 through 4 or I'm going to be 12. I really don't like anything else in between, because whenever I've mock draft in the middle, it doesn't see much of an improvement over my 12, and I get two better guys.
The middle is terrible. Again, honestly, right. After you see Barkley, Zeke, McCaffrey, Kamara, not necessarily in that order, but those four guys pretty much in, I would say 90+% of drafts are going to go the top 4 picks. Right. After that, you can make an argument for a lot of these guys being 5th, and then between 7 and 15 or so, it's a complete wash. It's honestly your specific preference. You could go with Devontae or Hopkins, Bell, David Johnson, Julio, Mixon, Connor, OBJ. You could take it one of the tight ends like a Kelsey, but to me, At 12, to me, you're guaranteed Michael Thomas still, and you could then have your pick of another receiver you like.
Now, here's just a little background. I struggled with the gentleman who picked number 1 to begin with. Now, here's my number 1 has 2 keepers. Now, the first one to me is questionable, but for a 16th round pick, it's Jerick McKinnon. I know San Francisco's done a lot of things, but he's keeping him for a 16th pick. I'm assuming. I think I would keep him for a 16. We're allowed to keep 3, so I would think I would keep him. But then he also gets to pick and keep James Conner for a 14th. So he's my argument would be, if I'm starting out with those 2 running backs, I would have gambled and I just said I'll pick 12. I think he should have picked 12, to be real honest. Starting with those 2 running backs, I'd have rather started with 2 top wide receivers. That being said, he hinted like Barkley, in the meeting, now, so I don't know if he threw that out just, to throw me off, or just if he really doesn't. I mean, he's picking number 1. I don't know how much gameplay there would be, but he's thinking Barkley. So that would be my thing. My thing is, if I can't get Zeke's my guy right now. I'm not a Barkley guy because he's a sophomore year. I'm not saying he can't do it. I just don't like the idea that he has only done it 1 year, and that offense has changed. I don't care what anybody says. It's changed a lot. And defensive coordinators have had a whole off season to prepare. So I'm not a Barkley fan anyway. So my only thing would be, I would only pick 1 through 4 if I thought for sure I could get Zeke and maybe McCaffrey, and then I'm back to doing 12 again. So that's kind of where I would be.
Easy. If you like McCaffrey and Zeke that much, you're guaranteed to get one of them. I know. If you take 2.
Right. So he can only take 1 guy ahead of me. And I'm just, again, Chris and me argue that Chris is a Barkley guy. I just, again, you need to show me, if nothing had changed in his situation, I'd have liked him a little bit more. But again, we've seen
how much has really changed. They stacked the box against him last year, and he still made them. He still put up the big points. They're going to stack the box against him again, and he can do it again.
I'm still not buying him. Not buying it.
I'm not saying he's number 1, but I'm saying he's a top 3 or 4 running back. I mean, it all depends. Right. Is Kamara going to be better with Ingram gone? Is Kamara going to be worse because
we don't know.
Have Ingram to share the workload?
Well, Kamara's a keeper. Kamara's a keeper, so he's not an option for me.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, if we're talking the top running backs, that's something you have to consider. They all have their pros and their cons, in my opinion.
Oh, definitely, because Zeke, I had Zeke last year. The problem is Zeke's done a few stupid things in the offseason. I don't think enough yet to get a suspension. But you can't go pushing and shoving security guards too many times before someone doesn't tell you, hey, you know what? Maybe you need to sit a few weeks, So there's a little scare there. And then McCaffrey's put on weight and, a few things. I don't know. So those would be the 2 I would go a little bit. I'm trying to, Juju Smith-Schuster, I'm pretty sure the gentleman's going to keep him in the 6th round, so I don't think he's going to be available. I'm just trying to see. Mahomes is a keeper for a 7th round. Nick Chubb's a keeper. Aaron Jones. I'm just trying to think any big names, which I don't think in the 1st round any of those are real. Connor would be the one that if he would go the 1st round. So the gentleman picking first already has McKinnon and Connor. And I don't think you take the number 1 pick and then take, a wide receiver. I don't think there's a wide receiver we're taking the 1st. So I'm assuming I would get Zeke or McCaffrey in the second or the third pick. And, that's where we would go. But, so that's where hold on. I'm going to bring Mr. Chris Allen in here, who looks like he's got his internet working. And I know you were on a time crunch, Lou. Do you know?
And I don't want to get in the way of the beautifulness of Easy and Chris. I mean, bring him on. I'd like to say hello, and then I'll just take off and let you guys
I want your one quick then choice. Then, if you're going to commit to the 12th, I'll give you the final word. Mr. Chris Allen, welcome to the show, Mr. Router Setter.
Right.
I don't know. I don't think you've ever been on the show with Lou Landers.
I have not had the pleasure yet.
Lou came on.
Nor have I, but I had to stick around knowing you were coming on, my man.
Oh, man, I appreciate it, dude. I mean, we've been talking so much in the chat. I appreciate you, one, filling in for me tonight for this, quick while I'm trying to figure out my internet. And two, I'm glad we were able to sit down and chat for a second.
It's like my two girlfriends are meeting for the first time. My Sunday start guy, my Wednesday,
whatever, man.
What happens if the girlfriends end up liking each other more than they like you?
Right. We should start our own show, Lou.
Right. See, I'm in trouble already. I'm in trouble.
Well, this was your plan.
The good thing is I bring nothing to the show, so you guys wouldn't care if I'm just there to watch. I'll sit in the corner and watch. That's all. I can do that.
I got you.
People just sit in the corner and watch.
I got you.
All right. Chris, Lou just popped on to get us started because I had a question. I'm gonna let him answer. I'm gonna let him answer. Then I'll let you answer.
Okay.
And that is, by tomorrow morning, I have to turn in what draft spot I want for my main league.
Okay.
I was pick number 2. The gentleman who had pick number 1 already picked spot number 1. So I can draft 2 through 12. So that's kind of where we're at. And I've kind of explained everything, but Lou's going to have to get out of here. So I want Lou, so you're committing, it sounds like, pretty much that I should just go with the 12th spot, take a couple of decent wide receivers to go with Damian Williams and call it a night. Is that what your formula is?
I do think so. I just love the players between 8 and 16, 8 and 17. I think that it's so even between all of them that any of them could go at any of those picks. As much as I love having Zeke or McCaffrey, let's say, at number 2, from your standpoint, Juju's going to be kept, sure, but I can't get over that potential Thomas at 12, Juju at 13, back-to-back pick in a 12-team league in a PPR.
When I hit the draft simulator real quick, I'll just, I'll do it real quick. If I'm pick number 12, I'll tell you pretty much, and yes, Michael Thomas has almost always been there, and he is again. And here's what I've been doing on most of my mock drafts. I've been getting Michael Thomas and Julio Jones at the turn. Odell Beckham's always been there. Michael Evans has always been there. The running backs that have been there, though, that's the thing. In these mock drafts, the running backs just shoot off. And the running back options I have at this point would be Bell, Mixon, and Chubb and Cook. It drops off quite a bit. So that's kind of where I'm at. And Chris, I have a keeper. My keeper would be Damian Williams in the 8th. That's the only keeper I really have because I sold out for the playoffs. Yeah. So that's why I think starting out picking on the turn, I don't know. I mean, every time I do it, Jones, Beckham, and Thomas are always there on the turn. So it's again, Schuster taken.
It's so early, and I'm nitpicking with things, but why I brought up Thomas and Schuster specifically, and I think Julio can obviously be in the conversation, is that Bell, new situation. Beckham, new situation. Connor really wore down at the end of last year. Mixon, I do like, but I like the other guys more. I'm more from the wide receiver standpoint, especially over OBJ, who you're right could be there. Right. Michael Thomas and Breeze clearly have a thing going together. And although Brown is out of Pittsburgh, there's still no denying the chemistry between Big Ben and Juju Smith-Schuster. Right. He's going to get a ton of receptions. So for me, in the first round, in the 12th and 13th pick, you can't miss. So I'm going with guys who, in my opinion, are
I happen to put Evans. I put Evans above Beckham and Brown only because, same thing, nothing has changed in his offense, and they throw him the ball. Now, here's the only – I'll throw one.
I love Bruce Arians there, by the way. Love that.
One last thing I'll throw in there. Travis Kelce comes up as a recommended pick for the first pick of round 2 also. So I technically could start out with Damian Williams, Michael Thomas, and Travis Kelce, which means technically I have one good player at all 3 spots offensively. So,
I think we can all agree Kelce is going to put up wide receiver 1 numbers at tight end. We don't know what's happening with Tyreek Hill for sure anyways. I mean, that could up his targets even more. So
right.
I'd be fine with that. But Michael Thomas would be my number 12. After that, you pick based on your gut, or in your situation, you already have a running back. You might want to do, as you said, get that top guy. I'd like to hear what Chris has to say, though. He's nodding his head, so I think I have his approval. Well, I want to hear what he has to say.
Let me ask him the first question first, because I think Chris has already in the past kind of talked like he would like to pick first, second, or third. But so that's the first question. Do you like me to pick? Would you take pick number 2 or 3 or somewhere else, or just go right to 12 and go there? I'd
rather be at the back end of drafts this year. I prefer at the very earliest, I'm thinking somewhere in like the 8-9 spot, if I can sit somewhere in there, because I think, as Lou pointed out, I mean, having to be able to pick somebody like a Travis Kelce, an Odell Beckham, like some of those like wide receiver 1, tight end 1, running back, say still in the elite tier, but kind of sliding towards the end of the first. I like those guys at that value right there. So if I can get close to the turn, you can get some of those guys you were talking about earlier, where you can harness like a turn of like a Michael Thomas or Julio Jones, something like that. Here,
kind of though, the only thing that changes, I just took the simulator and moved to pick number 9. The only really thing that changes is Julio Jones and Michael Thomas become recommended, but the only thing that changes is the top recommendation now is David Johnson.
I take him there too. Yeah.
So, that would be the only difference. And that's where I'm kind of then back to hedging 12. I personally feel, since I already have Damian Williams, that if I start Damian Williams, David Johnson, and Michael Thomas, or do you start Julio Jones, Michael Thomas, Damian Williams? It's a PPR.
That's what I was just going to ask, if it was PPR or not.
I feel like I would go. I still put Kelce in there over Julio, just from a touchdown standpoint.
Me too.
Julio will have those yards and receptions, but he doesn't get that many touchdowns.
But if you're going to do Thomas, if I'm going to do Thomas and Kelce, then I might as well pick 12.
Well, I think you should. Now, what I was going to say is I agree with Chris around that 8-9 spot if it's a running back that you plan on taking. If you're a running back first round player, 100% I'm with you, because you're not going to get one of those top guys still. However, if you're planning on going receiver, you might as well take 11 or 12, because whoever you take in 9, probably going to be there at 11 or 12, or at least 2 very good receivers still.
Right.
So it depends on what you want.
Yep. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that approach.
Every time I do the mock drafting, and again, I realize it's mock drafting in a real home league, anything can happen. Sure. But every time I do the mock draft, 5 or 6 running backs go off in the top 8. I mean, the only wide receivers that go are Hopkins and Adams. And I'm not convinced that Michael Thomas and Julio Jones can't do as good as they do, or won't have as good a year as either of them either. But I guess that's my point. And I'll be honest, the only time when I do pick number 2 and I get Zeke Elliott, and then I look Zeke and Damian Williams, and then I get a couple what I call that next tier of wide receivers.
Okay, well,
the team still kind of looks good.
You know who those players are, though?
Well,
I don't think AJ Green is going to fall to you, but if you're lucky if he does. But then you're looking at Amari Cooper, Thielen, and Diggs. I'm sorry, but those guys just don't do it for me compared to the 2 guys you can get up there.
Right.
And you already have a running back.
Right. Okay. When I do that, if I take Zeke, which I just did, I have Zeke, Damian Williams here. Let's just wait and see who comes around. In the wide receiver, here's the thing. In the wide receivers still available. See, here's my thing. I think now, again, I realize this is mock. Still available wide receivers is Evans, Keenan Allen, T.Y. Hilton, and A.J. Green and Cooper. I still think if you put any of those 2, preferably Evans and T.Y. Hilton to me, and Damian Williams and Zeke Elliott, isn't a bad start for 4 players.
No, it's not. But you don't know that either Hilton Allen or Green are going to fall. You can hope that they do, and then your plan probably works out. But the chances are two of those three are going to be gone. And if someone maybe passes on Gurley a little more because of the injury, someone isn't as into Nick Chubb or taking George Kittle early.
Nick Chubb's a keeper. Someone's keeping him. But yeah,
that hurts you even more. Thinking about that in your situation.
Well,
Kamara gone.
The next running back that would fall based on this would be Marlon Mack or Devontae Freeman.
Give me Freeman.
And then, but still, you have Keenan Allen, T.Y. Hilton, Cooper, right? Thielen and Diggs. I'm a Diggs guy, and if I could get him as a third wide receiver, I wouldn't have a problem.
Oh, I dig Diggs and Thielen. I dig them both, just not when I can think of the guys I can get before them and still grab myself a decent running back or even take my first quarterback off the board, Patrick Mahomes.
And that's only hoping that the guy picking number one doesn't take Zeke, because I'm not a Barkley guy. So then if I don't get Zeke at 2, well, then I'm pissed, because then I should have gone 12. So
then you just get CMC and he'll do better anyway. So stop it.
I'm not we've had that argument. McCaffrey, I'm not which is back
PPR, man. You can't go wrong with that, dude. He's going to lead the team in receptions again. Although I do like their tight end. I think he's going to Ian Thomas. He's going to be second on the team in receptions, actually, behind McCaffrey. But
okay, that's bold. I dig it.
Yeah, but that's all I got on there. That's all I got on McCaffrey. I'm going to let you guys do your regular thing, but I appreciate the time.
Well, thanks for coming on.
Great chatting with you, man.
I love it, man. Yeah, I have to do it again.
And helping me fill in. Before you go, when are you live? I know today you were on like all day long. When are you on next?
I will be on, I believe, 11 a.m. tomorrow, Nothing But Fantasy, with Andrea, and that is following Lenny at 9 and Arnie World of Sports at 10.
All right. And then are you and Cha-Cha now on how many days at 4?
Cha-Cha and I do Tuesdays and Fridays now, 4 p.m. Eastern, and I'll be DFS.
All right. Lou Landers talks, or Lander stalks, and my Sunday morning sit start guy, which will start we're going week 1. I think last year we started till like week 2 or something. I don't know. I don't think we started right away, but we're gonna make it happen. Lou, thanks for coming on tonight and filling in for Chris for a few minutes and helping me. You've helped me so much.
Well, thanks. I'm sure I didn't, but I appreciate it, Chris. Easy. Good show, guys. I look forward to listening to the rest of it. Take care of yourselves.
Go Reds. All right. Thanks again, Mr. Chris Allen. How you doing? And welcome. I'm glad you got that internet. So you must, I know sometimes you have a show before this, and
I did, and I was trying to record. We had Bob Lung on tonight. I don't know if any of the folks out there know him, but he writes the Consistency Report. It was actually voted the #1 publication by the Fantasy Sports Writers Association that I'm a part of. So we had him on tonight. We were talking about running backs and their consistency. It actually brought up your guy, Zeke Elliott. We had a little bit of conversation about him. And during the middle of it, my internet starts cutting out. My video's not working right. I had some film presentations to show him. Nothing was working right. And
that's the way it is. I mean,
it was so annoying. We're trying to
quit changing things, Chris. Quit changing.
I know. I was like, I don't know what it was. I want to blame my kids for like streaming stuff on all their devices, but I don't even think that was it tonight. So I don't know what the deal was. So yeah, I gotta do a whole bunch of editing magic to kind of splice my questions and all his audio together. So I don't know. All
right. Well, Lou came on because, like I said, I have 24 hours to make this pick. When I think I have till like 10 o'clock tomorrow to tell him what I want, or then it just defaults me to the next highest, which would be number 2.
Gotcha.
And then the next guy moves on. We each get 24 hours, unless, because we've had that before. We've had a few people where they were, because of vacation or something, and they couldn't get a hold of them. We kind of gave them a little leeway there.
Oh, sure.
But this is the first year I've really had this kind of a decision. And I'll be honest, I have mocked multiple ways. And to be real honest, it really comes down to I'm either picking number 2 or I'm picking 12. I haven't liked, don't get me wrong. It's not like my teams aren't, I've done this. I know what I'm doing. I'm able to come up with a pretty decent team pretty much regardless where I pick.
Right.
Now, here's another stipulation that maybe I brought up with Lou, maybe I didn't. The other thing is our waiver wire is a set waiver. So the other advantage I have of picking 12 is I have the first waiver spot. And I can hold that for as long as I want. So
it does inverse of draft order. So yeah,
right.
Okay.
So if I pick, let's say I go back and I get Thomas and Julio Jones, because right now that seems to be the most common option I would have. So if I would go those two, and then do the rest of my stuff, then the nice thing there is, everyone knows the top running back prospect off the waiver wire usually happens in the first week or two because of an injury, so having that extra waiver wire, if I go wide receiver, I already have Damian Williams, which I'll ask you about here in a second, because I got Lou's opinion. And that number one waiver wire kind of gives me an advantage going, okay, the first big injury for a running back, I should be able to pick up a handcuff or somebody at least that's going to be a starter,
sure.
which actually sometimes those guys are number one, number two quality picks, so going back to, on the turn and then having that waiver wire spot, you end up, technically you could end up with 3 first round quality scores, if things fall right, what I'm saying? I mean, and I know I tried to explain to somebody I was in a league last year where Connor did not get drafted because we drafted early.
Sure.
Connor and the waiver wire was locked till the first week. Now I didn't have the number one waiver wire, so someone else got Connor, but somebody got Connor the first week of the waiver wire,
Oh, that's so good. That's so money.
Yeah. So now he didn't help much at the end of the season, but he sure helped you get playoffs or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's a point where a waiver wire spot technically got you another round one, high round 2 pick. So, that makes it kind of nice. So, I got to say after and Damian Williams is my only keeper. I can keep him in the 8th. I don't think anyone's going to have a problem with that. If he gets the full load, he's a 2nd or 3rd round pick easy. If he shares with Carlos Hyde or any of the rookies, he's still probably going to give me, at least round 8.
No, wait a second. If he gets the full workload, I mean, that's a 1st round draft pick, man.
Well, if that's
the return that you get.
I would agree with that based on, but he's not, but he's, how do I want to say this? I guess maybe I worded it wrong. Right now, he's being picked in the 4th round. Because people don't know. So what I'm saying is, at a minimum, I think getting him in round 8.
That's huge value. I mean, right now he's going about where, Carlos Hyde, in best ball formats, I've seen him go anywhere from like the 9th, 10th round, like somewhere in there. So if you're getting Damian Williams in the 8th round, I mean, that's massive value.
Well, I mean, I have to keep him, but my point is, at a minimum, he should be, to start the season, a good number 2 running back. I mean, I don't, and in some leagues, he might be the first running back some players would take if you're taking him in the 4th round, but I think for most good fantasy players, you're hoping to get Damian Williams as your number 2 running back, not your number 1.
Well, just to reduce risks, absolutely.
Right.
But the team has come out and said that he is they're not kidding. They want him to be their starter. And regardless of what you think about Carlos Hyde, I don't think that they brought him in to completely take over what Damian Williams was able to do in both towards the end of the season and the playoffs. So I think you're looking at a number 1 running back here. It's just the risk that's associated with it, but the ceiling is just through the roof because you're playing with the Kansas City Chiefs offense. So.
Right, and that's kind of where it lies then. Because if I go and pick 12 and 13, I'm going to go wide receiver. Mm-hmm. So obviously that makes Damian Williams my number 1 running back at that point.
Sure.
He would be my number 1 because after that, then you're getting. If I move forward, then I'm probably going to get a, Kerryon Johnson, a Derrick Henry.
Oh, I love me some Kerryon this year, man.
I'm trying to look who else. Maybe Marlon Mack would drop to me a little farther if
that's not bad.
Because like I said, right, it just would, I guess based on all that, I'm kind of leaning then. I'm probably going to go pick number 12, take my 2 wide receivers, and And again, or wide receiver and Kelsey. That's probably going to be my biggest thing is, do I want a tight end, in the second?
That's also, I mean, what do you feel? I mean, I'm not going to give you my thoughts on it, but what do you feel about team stacking? If you already have Damian Williams, you're taking Travis Kelsey. So now you're relying on.
I never put that together.
Yeah, you're relying on Kansas City to basically win. I mean, just say nothing about bye weeks. I don't care about bye weeks, but you're relying on Kansas City Chiefs to basically be the same as they were in 2018. Which is not outside of the realm of possibility.
Well, but in the mock drafts I've been doing this year, I'm satisfied with a couple of late round tight ends or late draft pick tight ends that I think will give me, points. For instance, at the end of the draft or late enough, I'm looking here.
Late round tight ends.
I have no problem at the end of the draft having a choice, having Reed, Olsen, and Rudolph, and Graham.
Jordan Reed. Hell, you could probably get by with Tyler Eifert if you really wanted to. Mark Andrews has now become a great option.
Tyler Eifert to me could be, and not just saying this as a Bengals fan, he's healthy because he hasn't played in almost 2 years now. Yeah. And he's on a 1-year contract. He has something to prove. Now, I don't think he fakes getting hurt. So getting hurt.
Oh, yeah.
But if he's healthy, he's going to be a top 12 tight end. I mean, I think, and I like that. So I agree. My point is, I have been mock drafting and pretty much skipping tight ends altogether. I've been happy because I would, if I had Reed and Olsen, meaning my last 2 picks of my draft, Reed and Olsen. All right. Yeah. I'll take a chance that one of them, gets me 10 points a game,
Sure.
And really what's going to happen is 1 week they're going to get you 18, another week they're going to get you 6, and you just have to live with that. So
I think so. Yeah.
But it is fun. I told Lou, once you have your draft picked, and you get your, and I started setting the keepers in the mock draft, the mock drafting now becomes more fun. You're actually seeing now mock drafts that actually, fall into what might really happen, so.
Right. Because now, you can get a better feel for ADP and then and all that. So, yeah.
Right. And we've had that conversation, and we'll, in a few weeks, we'll go down that road. And now's when you want to start making your, your cheat sheets or whatever you want to call it, your player evaluation, because you want to move it around. You want to get it set early to be moving it around, Yeah,
I've got my tiers set up for at least the running backs and wide receivers. Yeah. I've done everything but tight ends.
I have not done it yet because, like I said, I won't, and I'll probably wait to the rest of by the end of this week, most of our draft settings will be set, and I'll have a better idea on who's drafting where and who's more likely to do what. And all that. And then I'll start setting my tiers. So, all right. That wasn't something I planned on talking about tonight, but
drafting is my thing, man.
I know. But since you couldn't come on right away, I knew Lou had literally 5 minutes till you had just texted me that you couldn't, you were having issues. Yeah. And Lou had just said hi in the chat room or something. I said, hey, Chris is going to run late. I'm going to go maybe do 10 minutes by myself. Do you want to hop on? And, we'll talk about, the draft position. And that's kind of where we went. So,
heck yeah.
There you go. We killed the first 40 minutes of the show.
That's what we do.
We can get right into the meat.
Let's do it.
Fantasy Fan Sportscast at Lenny Melnick, FantasySports.com, the Legend Sports Network. This is episode 6 in the perfect league setting.
The saga continues.
Football. And this will be the end. This will be it. Because
so you say.
Looking at it, it's pretty simple. I mean, because to me, the scoring, now that we're actually down to player scoring, I don't know. There's a couple of things that are important, but other than that, I don't. I mean, I think people get too in depth on some of the stuff that they do. And ESPN just logged me out right when I was going to my fantasy thing. But that's where we're at. Real quick, for all of our listeners that want to know where we've gone so far, Chris, you probably can quote these yourself by now without a piece of paper.
I think so. We've recapped it enough.
League size: home leagues 12, competitive teams 10. Mm-hmm. 1 quarterback, 1 super flex in home leagues, 2 quarterback in competitive leagues, 2 running backs, 3 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 1 flex. which is a running back, wide receiver, tight end, 1 kicker, 1 defense. Bench spots 5 to 6, 7 if you're not having an IR. If you're doing the 5-6, we pretty much 1 IR. And then we did stipulate in this case, because ESPN's not good at that, an injured player only. Put that in your rules. Somebody sits out or somebody gets suspension. Now, usually suspended people you can't put down there, but the argument would be, if the guy's out for a reason other than an injury, he shouldn't necessarily be allowed to be on an injured reserve spot.
Right.
But no roster limits, minimum or maximum, we decided. And the league payment amount should roughly be $50 to $100. We figure at a minimum based on the league. Use a top site. Weekly payouts. That's the only thing we're going to do down the road a little bit, because we think that keeps people interested. We are doing a PPR. We do want hardware. I'm amazed at how many people have texted me that the hardware is almost more important than the money, especially in a competitive league.
Whatever. Give me the cash, man.
Well, I know, but I do think there's something about, and trust me, Chris, if we're in a league together and I got hardware, you're going to see it every show.
Oh, yeah, I know.
But if I win cash, you're never going to see it unless I spend on beer every week. But definitely I would be showing you my hardware every week. So,
gotcha.
And that's half the fun. Come on. We all know that. So then we went to full rosters must be set every week, meaning you have to have a kicker or defense. Even if you're on a bye week, that's fine, but you have to have them. You can't not have a kicker or defense mainly. Right. And it could also be a tight end or something, meaning you just can't, you have to be able to fill a roster. We decided on Fab, $1,000, and we decided there would be no $0 bids, meaning you got to budget your money, especially in a competitive league. Now, maybe in a home league, you could, maybe flip that a little bit for people who don't quite understand. You just want to make it easier on them. But I think that's kind of it on what we've done so far. So really what we're doing tonight is scoring. And I thought the first thing, I was going to bring my league scoring up just so I can kind of see. But the first thing I want to bring up that everyone argues about is 6 points for a passing touchdown or 4 points, or do you care? Which
it doesn't matter.
I am also that way. I mean, I'm a believer it doesn't matter, but because we're doing PPR and we like points, my argument would be you might as well do it 6 then. I really don't think it matters. And some people will analyze it like it does. But so if I had to pick, I'd do 6 just because I like to see the points. But
no, it really doesn't matter. JJ Zachariason already did a study on it. It really
I know.
Matter.
I've seen all that. But it doesn't matter except there are more points scored. It equals out over quarterbacks. But in the games themselves, you're going to see maybe 8 more points in a game. If you get 2 extra points for 4 touchdowns, there's 8 more points scored. Even though your quarterback equals another quarterback, it doesn't matter. I get that. Sure. I understand. But my point is, especially in a home league, if you're a home league that likes to see numbers, then
6 scores are always fun.
Right. So league settings. So I'm going to put down scoring 6 point passing TD.
Right. And I would guess if it's also super flex and it's 6 point scoring, that means quarterbacks are going to fly off the board because people always think it makes a difference.
That's the problem. They think it makes a difference, but it's
going to drive ADP.
Now, another thing that I have read and listened to many people that also doesn't matter, but back to if you like points. And my argument with this one is there are people out there that are convinced it makes a difference. So if it causes them to make a mistake, I like this. And I like the 1.5 point PPR for a tight end.
TE premium. Yeah.
But if all the information that's out there will tell you it makes almost no difference. That 0.5, on 100 catches, it really doesn't make as much difference as you would think, but it does make scoring look better. And
Right.
there are people out there that will draft a tight end a couple of rounds sooner, thinking it makes a bigger difference than it does, but it really doesn't. I mean, I know there's people that argue, but when, back to Zacharyson,
JJ.
he's also done that also. He's even he's even said it, that the difference over a full season is maybe 10 points,
I just did a study like that for a piece that's actually dropping for 4 for 4, where I looked at how tight end premium really only affects the players at the top end. So for players like George Kittle, Zach Ertz, and Travis Kelce that get over like 100 plus targets or receptions, that half point PPR will boost them. But the guys that are below them, so like even players like OJ Howard that are only going to get like, let's say 70 or 80 targets, that's really not going to boost them enough in order to propel them into the third round. It doesn't make that big of a difference.
So it might move Kelce. I don't know. It might move him up from early second to late first. Maybe.
Oh yeah, it'll push those guys the elite tier. But the rest of everybody else,
and them each around. But after those first 3 or 4, it doesn't change much. So my argument would be, in a competitive league, I think you put it on there just to make people have to make a tougher decision on draft day.
It just drives more people to draft tight ends earlier.
Right.
That's it.
And then I'd assume, is there any other, the next big important thing for setting the perfect league is you got to set decimal points.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, you say, oh yeah, but most of a lot of the leagues settings don't default, they default to single numbers, and you run into ties and all that. So, you need to set decimal points
to hundreds.
Yeah. Decimal point to the 100th. All right. That's what I got. I put that down there, Chris. I think that's important. Less likely there's a tie.
Yes.
So those 3, I think it's pretty common, 6 points for any touchdown. Is there any other, again, my thing when I look through this, there wasn't, most of these things are just, and my argument is almost, the default settings in most cases will work. I don't think anyone, are there any other unique settings on, that you would change, especially, on offense? I'm not talking, we'll get into kicker here quickly, or maybe defense, but on offensive side, other than the 3 things we just talked about, which to me are main kind of things, even though they make a lot of difference, people ask about them. So are there any other scoring other than the next thing I'm going to talk about is bonuses for, going over 100 or going over 200 or going over 300 yards catching?
Me personally, I do like points per first down. I do like that.
Points for first down. Do you, all right. I've never played it. So
I've done it for, I think Scott Fish has done that in the Fish Bowl. I believe it was like 2 seasons ago.
Right.
But I've been in some dynasty leagues and also some redraft leagues that have done it that way. It's not bad. I think it's just a different flavor. It doesn't change much in terms of draft strategy.
Okay. In a competitive league, what about in a home league? Does that confuse people in a home league?
Honestly, it doesn't, because most people understand the concept, but since it doesn't change draft strategy, it's just something that, that's what you get points for. All right.
Okay. And, we already decided PPR, so that doesn't change anything. And I think most leagues do it's 0.1 and, for a yard caught, a yard, or a yard ran. So obviously if they go 10, you get a point.
Right. Yeah.
That type thing. And again, I really couldn't come up with too much strange things that I would change, or what I would call really unique things, other than that. So let's roll into the bonuses. Are you a guy that likes the bonuses?
Oh yeah.
100 yards.
Award them for the big plays. Absolutely.
Okay. That you went one step farther than me. Because there's the big play bonus, which in most cases is runs,
big plays, big performances, that sort of thing.
I prefer the overall performance, because I don't think one guy getting lucky and catching a 70-yarder, should get much more. But the guy that does the 100 or 200 yard or catches for 300 yards, I think those are so. And that's where we're going to go. Is that where you think the first set of bonuses should be the 100? I think the default is usually 100.
Yeah, if you pass the century mark for a running back, wide receiver, or tight end, that's when you get a bonus. And then for passing, I thought passing was generally anything over pass over 300, pass over 400, pass over
For
500.
the quarterback.
Yeah.
Throwing.
Yeah.
Right. Because for rushing and passing, it's 100.
Yeah.
Usually, if you go over 100, you get, and what I like, or what we've been doing in my home league, is we do 3 or 4 bonus points for the 100 passing and rushing. We do 4.
Okay.
And then if you hit the next tier, which is 100, which would be 200, then you get another 4.
Okay.
And so if they go over 200, you're going to get a total of 8 bonus points. Now, where people need to watch, ESPN defaults to where those 2 bonuses are equal each other out.
Right. You got to change that.
You have to change it for 2 different tiers. So
agree.
That's why I do 4. And then what you do is on the 200, you do 8 because it's going to take the 4. It's weird the way it does it. You have to do 4 and 8 because you only get one or the other. So once they go over 200, you get the 8 points. So, and then for quarterback passing, this is the one this year my league debated about because 300, unfortunately, is almost becoming, I don't want to use the word standard because it still is. It's amazing how many running backs and wide receivers just get in the 90s. What? But quarterbacks now, you know what? They either have 180 because it was one of those days or one of those game scripts, or everyone's throwing for 300. So my problem is the 300 to me for a bonus is almost getting paid for just doing normal or what's now normal. We don't see ESPN though, where you can change it to 350, but people in the league think 400 is too hard to hit. And then, so if you do that, then you make the number so high that if your quarterback throws for 400, you're going to, you get 10 points or something, and that's too much. So what's your opinion?
If it's just a bonus, I mean, really, I don't really think that the line the line of demarcation for them to get the bonus is kind of irrelevant because it's something extra. So if they're already passing for 300 yards and 2 to 3 touchdowns, you're already having a good day for your quarterback anyway.
Right.
So if they pass for 400, it's a bonus. I mean, that's exactly what the scoring setting is.
So is that, again, the default is 300.
Sure.
We're arguing this year, and we're doing a vote, is if we want to move that to 400, but make it a bigger bonus, meaning instead of 4 and 4, it would just be 10. You get 10 bonus points if your quarterback throws over 400.
Do it. I like it.
Meaning that's a big. So you would do away with the 300. You agree with this that 300 is almost a norm now, that it's not really bonus?
I'd have to look into it. It feels that way.
Okay, and I'm a fan. I don't look shit up, but so you're right. I could be wrong, or we could be wrong, but I'm just saying
it's a simple study to do.
It just seems like when my quarterback doesn't get 300, they always get like 190. It's not like the running backs that are all in the 90s. I can't tell you how often I look down and go, he's got 98 yards with 4 minutes to go.
Right.
They don't hand him the ball. I mean, it's like, dang it. I wanted those 4 points. But
let's look at it. I mean, we could do this real quick. So if somebody played, so how long's the fantasy season? So let's say like 13 games.
13 weeks.
So 13 weeks. And then
regular season, and then 3 more weeks usually for playoffs.
Okay, so 16 games, and they would need to score at least 300 or throw for 300 yards. Right.
16. Right. So 16 times 300 would give you an average. Right.
So that's 48. That's 4,800 yards. There's not too many quarterbacks that actually hit 4,800 yards last season.
Yeah, but I think but to me then, is that my thought though, that they're either getting 3 and 350 or they're getting 180. I guess that's my point. I just very rarely
from a week to week standpoint.
I just very rarely look down and see 290 or 280. It just, I don't know. Well, all right. So you're right. 4,800 is a pretty good number.
Right. Because if I just pull up, just go into the stats area, over at just checking Fantasy Pros, just real quick. I mean, so we've got 1, 2, if we're just looking at yards, I'm seeing 1, 2, 3. 3 passers were over 4,800 yards. Matt Ryan, Patrick Mahomes, and Ben Roethlisberger last season. That's it.
Well, well then, you know what? Maybe 300 is the number then. Maybe I'll change my thought process.
I mean, after that, you got Jared Goff at just short of 4,700, Andrew Luck at about 4,600. Aaron Rodgers.
I hate when you throw numbers at me.
I'm just saying. I'm just throwing out hypotheticals here. I mean, just trying to work out the logic.
Based on that, 300 would be the number.
Yeah.
And I think you would do the same thing. 300, you get 4 points. And then if you go over 400, you would get 4 more or 8 total bonus points.
Yeah,
So-
because I mean, even Russell Wilson only passed for short of 3,500 yards last season. So even like the guys that we consider to be elite, they would not even be eligible for the bonus for most weeks.
All right, then we're gonna move it. Well, but that's my point, though. I guess a little bit. You actually changed my mind, but at the same
Because
point,
it's a bonus, right? Because it's something
it should be hard to do. You know. So I guess that's kind of my thing.
So the line at 300, I don't think is bad. I mean, but I just don't think it was hit all that often to say that the first line for the bonus should be 400. Right. It could be.
Right. We'd have to go
look at it.
Right. We'd have to go somewhere and see how many 300-yard, passing we had last year, I guess, or how many 300-yard games. In my league. Oh, no, unfortunately it's reset because it's a new season already. So I can't, scoring leaders. Here it is. I'm just curious last year in my own league, scoring leaders and quarterback. Yeah. Mahomes had, 5,000 yards. So he obviously did it multiple times. Matt Ryan, 49. Wait a minute. Let me just sort it this way.
So those guys.
What was your number? 4,000 and what? 300 times 16 was what?
4,800.
Okay, 4,800. Well, yeah, that is just 3 people: Matt Ryan, Mahomes, and Roethlisberger.
Yep, that's just those guys.
And Roethlisberger had the most yards last year.
Yeah, he did. I mean, he killed it.
29.
Well, yeah, but the dude threw like almost 700 times.
Yeah, but he also didn't he have like 2 games also that were like over 400 and one that was almost 500 yards? Didn't he miss a 500-yard game by, a few yards?
That wouldn't surprise me. I don't remember his week-to-week standpoint, but I knew like in terms of passing volume, Pittsburgh had the most out of the entire NFL.
All right. I think I've changed my mind. 300 and do 4 points, and then 400 do 4 more. So, all right, there's where we're at. Defenses, I don't have a problem. I actually like the way defense work, where you start with that big number of points and then you bring it down, when things go wrong. But I have done both. I've been in some where that number is smaller, so it changes a lot less. And then in our home league now, our defenses start with like 30 points, because when the 4:00 game starts and your defense, you go, oh yeah, man, what happened? I'm ahead by 40 now. And you're like, oh,
yeah, like how my defense started.
Yeah. And then, then after 4 plays, it's down to 6 points. But, but at the same time, I think that makes it fun. So I like that. I like the defenses throwing out that big, that big number.
I don't mind it.
So, now does it have to be 30 or 40? I don't know, but the league where my defense starts with 10 just seems to be boring. And then now the thing about the 10 is it goes up or down. When you start with the 30, it almost always ends lower, but so it's one of the few things where you watch it go down. It's the only scoring thing all, on your Sundays that you're watching where the number, you're hoping like, oh, please defense, you can't give up a yard here. I'm going to drop again. And I'm already, especially when you have a defense on a Monday night and it's a close game, you're like, oh, defense, come on, I need an interception, or at a minimum, don't let them get a first down or whatever.
Right.
So I like the 30-point. I don't even know what to say. Is it just a 30-point starting point? I don't even know 30-point defensive scoring. I don't even know how they set it up.
Yeah, I don't know what the minimum is for doing something like that.
All right, I just like the bigger number, which makes it fun.
That's fair.
So on defense now, the issue we're talking about in my league right now is back to kickers.
Okay.
Should the scoring? It seems odd that for a 49-yarder, you get the same points as you do for a 41-yarder. Should it be based on the total yardage somehow?
Yes.
Meaning it should be 4.9.
Yes.
If it's a 49-yarder. Or,
if you're going to do fractional scoring for like running back rushing yards or wide receiver, like receiving yards and all that,
you'd use a decimal point also for kicking.
We have the technology to calculate all that, so why not do the same for kicking? I don't understand.
Now, I have never set it up that way, so I will have to look and see at some of the leagues if that's an option that we have, but I agree.
For ESPN, I don't think it is. You might have to go back in there and kind of hand jam it after the fact if you really want to do that.
I didn't hit the explicit button. Let's watch the hand jamming. Okay.
You know what I meant.
Kicking decimal point setting. So I agree with that. And I also like prorating, which I think a couple years ago it didn't do, but now it does. And that's where if you miss a short one, you get negative points. But if you miss a 50-yarder, you don't get anything taken away. I don't think you should get penalized if they run your kicker out there with no time, to kick a 70-yarder. You shouldn't lose -4, which a couple years ago it did that. It's like, come on.
It took off that much?
Yeah, I think if I don't recall, 2 or 3 years ago, you would get -4 if they missed. It was like equal to what they would have gained, that type thing. I don't know. It was a weird thing. And then last year was the first year I remember it in our league. So I don't know if he changed it or it defaulted different, where if they missed something I think it was over anything over 40, you didn't lose any points. I think if they missed from 30 to 20, it was like -2. If they missed from the 20 to the 10, it was -3. If they missed from 30 to 40, it was -1, and over 40, there was no negative. So, I agree. Your kicker should make a 10-yarder, and if not, you should get penalized. I mean, I don't have a problem with that.
All right.
If you're going to use kickers and defenses, make it as strategical as possible. So, that would be all. Would you have a problem with that?
No, I have no issue with that at all.
All right. Doug out there, when my fantasy league moved from paper, that means he's been playing a long time. I've never played paper fantasy. To online sites. We had to drop combining rushing and receiving yards to separate them because those were the parameters, helping with almost on. I see. So, well, no, I guess that wouldn't matter. It's already broken out. A wide receiver or a running back can have 100 yards passing and 100-yard rushing and get the bonus for both. I mean, if that's what he's asking the question, I mean, I don't think it matters. It does break them out and keep them separate. So I think maybe that's what Doug is saying, that they're broken out that way. But as far as I know, do any of the sites do that? That's what he's asking. And I think that's the default. I think ESPN, if you have a running back, is going to, they do break out
so too,
and their passing yards. It's
I thought that's how it's broken out.
Yeah. So I'm a little confused on the question, Doug, but if we'll try to answer it the best we can if we didn't answer it there. But, all right. Anything else in scoring, any unique scoring or anything that now here's the last thing.
Okay.
That I have in the scoring because I like, but most people don't like. I like, and ESPN has it. I don't know if the other sites. I like the 1 point for win and a -1 for a loss.
Victory points.
I like thank you. So victory points. I like the victory points. I get it. Most people say it's out of your control, but at the same time, if your decision factor on, 2 players that are a coin flip, that 1 point could make a difference for you. Or, your whole thing. I mean, obviously, if you're starting, 14 people and they all win, that's 14 points. That can make a big difference.
Yeah, I like that.
It is a game, and winning should be part of the decision that you're making. Is that you're, hey, this guy's got a better shot at winning today than this guy, and they're pretty much equal. So I'm gonna try to get the 1 point. And then other people say in the long run that doesn't matter either. That it really equals out, anyway. But do you like? You would have no problem in the perfect league that victory points were awarded.
No, I like that. I like implementing those. Yeah.
Victory points awarded. I just always like that +1 more at the very end. That's all. Right. You can't points, man. This is a game about points.
That's what we want.
I think that's all the score. Actually, we wrote a lot of stuff down. There was more to this scoring thing that I kind of thought we'd get into. Anything else you can think of scoring wise that I'm not into the coach scoring at this point or anything myself, but I don't know much about that. Other than
not really my thing.
to me, the victory points are the same thing. I mean, if you have a good team and a good coaching staff, victory points kind of play a factor that way. But
Yeah.
I see what Doug's saying. 93 yards rushing, 17 receiving. Would that count as 110 yards to get a bonus? Not in my not in my book. Combined yardage doesn't, or at least ESPN doesn't do it that way either. You get a bonus for 100 yards rushing, period, and you get 100 yards more for running back if you're running back or any receiver, period. I don't know of any. So that's what he's saying. They would give you. I kind of like that though. I mean, PPR you're kind of rewarding anyway the guy that does it all, but should a guy that catches for 60 yards and then runs for 40 and get a total of 100, should he? I mean, isn't that a special day? I mean, it doesn't happen that often. Is that not special?
I honestly don't think so, to be quite honest with you. And especially if you're already getting, you're getting quote unquote bonuses off of the fact that they're getting some receptions in there, I'm assuming.
Right. That's what I would say, right. Because it's already PPR, you're kind of already getting rewarded for the catch.
Right. So, I mean, even if they do cross the century mark for, total scrimmage yards.
But ESPN and the players, if you listen to interviews at the end, it's a pretty big deal to the players that they did a 120 yards or 100. And, I mean, the players like that, like a Tyreek Hill, Tyreek Hill would go over 100 multiple times if you combined both.
Sure.
So I could see where that's something I don't know of a site that does it, but I'm sure obviously it doesn't happen that often that you could keep track and say, okay, we'll get 4 points for an overall bonus too. Because technically, isn't 100 yards, regardless how you get it, even combined? I mean, that's kind of the point of the game, right? I mean, 100 yards is the point of the game. The field's 100 yards. If the guy rushes for 60 and catches for 40, I mean, that is kind of doing your job.
Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, should we give them a bonus for that?
I don't know. I mean, 100 yards is 100 yards. You don't see it.
I don't see it. I'm not saying it's wrong. I haven't played that way.
Okay, I guess in my mind, here's where it would be important. Some of these rules we even said while we were doing them probably don't affect the game overall that much. They just make you think a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that's a rule that would make you change a few draft picks. I mean, now you look at some of the PPR running backs.
Well, like you were going to draft, you're keeping Damian Williams. I mean, he's almost a lock.
Right.
100 scrimmage yards every week.
That moves him up, right now he's going in the 4th round. If the rules were set up to where you got a combined bonus of 4 more points for combined yardage, passing, and catching, he moves up.
Yeah.
Cohen might move up. I mean,
Cohen could move up. Yeah.
Tyreek Hill, would have already been high if he didn't have other issues. But obviously you would look. The odds are he's going to get 100 yards because he's going to catch 80 and at least run for 20.
Yeah. I mean, the rookies, so like Josh Jacobs, David Montgomery.
That's the point. In the perfect league, do you want to look at some of those things and say, hey, in the perfect league, we want it to be, we want the draft day where you have to make a few decisions. And this makes a few players move around, which, makes decisions more of a thing.
Hey, you talked me into it. I'm into it. I like it.
So if it's even an option, I already shut off ESPN scoring. I'll put a big question mark. Combined yards, rushing, passing, combined bonus.
So scrimmage yards.
Right. Scrimmage. Right. Yards, passing, rushing, combined bonus. 100 plus would be 4 points. And if it's 200 plus, it'd be another 4 points, right? Wouldn't you do it that way?
Yeah.
All right. So, because to me, that could also be the thing. You could have that wide receiver that has a 170-yard day, which we've seen. And then one end around gets him 32 yards. He now has 200 yards.
Right.
So, okay. I'm putting a big question mark on that to make sure. That's the kind of thing that you have to make sure. If you have to do pencils and weird calculations, I don't think the perfect league needs that. The perfect league, everyone needs to be able to look at something and know where they stand point wise, not wait for some commissioner to do the math. So
I agree.
My argument would be if it's not a rule we can do in the app or the website that we pick, then you just kind of have to leave it off. If it's important enough, I don't feel this one's important enough where we would say, well, we can only do that on this site, so we're going to do that, because you end up losing other things. Meaning, I would have to look at that. So
yeah, I agree.
kind of a neat little rule, Doug. So
yeah, I like that.
All right, the last thing, we only got a couple minutes, would just be: are there any unique rules or any unique settings or any unique? And again, I think last week where my league does have the you can't even roster more than 2 quarterbacks in a 2 quarterback league. I'm trying to even think, of what else there would be out there. I know there's rule, and we really didn't get to that. Maybe we'll get into that down the road later on. Is just then your playoff settings that technically would be part of scoring.
Oh, sure.
I'm a believer, and unfortunately, ESPN sucks at it. I like the idea if you're going to send 6 teams to the playoffs. I'm not a fan of bye weeks. I know people are, so that sucks. But I think if you're going to do that, you do the first week 1 week, and then that really makes the bye week more valuable also. But then after that, 2-week playoffs. I like the 2-week playoff system. The problem is you have to end your season a week earlier to make it work sometimes.
Because I don't like the bye weeks either, because it's not like your team actually gets to rest. Your players are still playing. They still might get injured. They might have worse matchups. I prefer the headhunter format, where the people with the higher seeds. So if you go in with like the number 1 and number 2 seed, they get to pick who they play.
That's what we do in our league, right?
Yeah, I like that.
You don't get a bye week, but you get to pick the guy who finishes number 1 in the league gets to pick whoever he wants to play.
Yeah,
I
like that.
Last year, and actually it was 2 years ago, he picked the number 2 team because the number 2 team ended up with a lot of injuries at the end of the season, and he picked the number 2 team and wiped him up. He knew that was the worst team at that time, because I've seen teams that sneak in at 6 that are on fire, and you don't play that guy. So that's why the bye week helps. Or in this case, I do like that also. That's what we do in my league. We do the headhunter where we don't do a bye week, but we only do 1 week playoffs. We have 3 weeks of playoffs and that's it, but unfortunately, it's like last year I had a great team that sucked, in the semifinals. I was scoring over 200 points every week and I scored 118.
It's rough.
Here's the thing. The very next week, which was the Super Bowl, I scored 240 some and would have beat both teams that were in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so that's tough to watch.
It's just hard. So I like if you can figure a way to do it, and sometimes maybe you only play 12 weeks and you add that extra week to the playoffs. I think in the perfect league, you got to figure out at a minimum how to do the Super Bowl week to do 2 weeks. That would be my thing. I don't have a problem with the first week or 2 being a 1 week playoff, but then to me, the Super Bowl should be 2 weeks. You should draw out that competitive juices. So 2 week Super Bowl is what I'm going to put. Because if you do 2 weeks for every round, now you got to quit the season at like week 11.
Right, yeah.
2 week Super Bowl scoring. So that's what we're going with. And we'll make that work. Now, the problem is ESPN doesn't let you do that. ESPN says you got to do 1 week playoffs or you do 2 week playoffs with 4 teams.
Yeah, not all that flexible in that regard.
Yeah, I know. So same thing though. If we can't come up with a site that gives us everything we want and that feature, then we would have to figure something out. And or do you just that would to me would be the one maybe worth doing a hand scoring. Meaning, guys, we're letting you're playing this week, even though ESPN says you're not. And we would figure that out.
I like it.
So, anything else?
I think that's it. I think we got it all, man.
All right. The last thing. To me, it's not scoring, but it's back to the playoffs. We talked about that in my home league this year. There's still a problem with the teams that are out of it.
Okay.
And how do you make them keep playing through the playoffs even? One, just to make it fun. I mean, I don't like to be out. I mean, I hate for the season to end anyway. So I being out the first week of the playoff and then going crap, or even being a team that didn't make the playoff. You were team number 7.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're deciding to do right now, we are randomly picking where you pick for your playoff, for your next year's draft pick.
Okay.
And when me and you brought this up, you talked about, well, you can do games. There's things you can do to make it more fun rather than just random draw.
Yeah.
So my decision was, why don't we make the playoff system somehow a point system for ping pong balls? Meaning, no, I mean, you know what I'm saying? So even when the playoffs are over, if you're out of the playoffs, that next week you're still playing for ping pong balls.
Okay.
So you're not playing for money. You're not getting any more or any less. But if you win every game you play, every game you win when the playoffs start, let's say, you get 5 ping pong balls. So you want to win 3 more games. That's 15 ping pong balls where your name is more likely to get drawn for you to be the number 1 pick selector next year. You know what I'm saying? To me, it's a way to kind of reward how and where you would pick next year by performance this year.
Okay.
Versus I'm out of it. I'm not set my lineup. I'm done, or I lost in the first round of the playoffs, so I'm out. Well, when it drops you down to that consolation bracket, you say, hey, but if you win this week, you get 5 ping pong balls, or 10 ping pong balls or 1 ping pong ball. But, just a way to say, if you keep playing, there is a reward that can pay off for you the next year. So, something like that, and we can go down that road, as far as maybe later, but I think it's a unique thing to do. I've seen where people do a playoff, they do a consolation and they give a prize for the winner of the losers bracket.
Yeah.
And I've seen that, but even that, usually most of those I ever hear about, even then the people don't play very hard because there's not much money or it doesn't matter. Obviously the big thing is, if you lose that bracket, you get an ass on your, a tattoo on you somewhere.
Yeah.
Doing that. I don't know. That's not my cup of tea I'm going to do something like that, but I do like the idea that you keep playing to be rewarded next year somehow.
Yes, I do like that.
And we even talked about maybe coming up with some kind of and I'll keep using the word ping pong ball because these draft lotteries all use ping pong balls. Mm-hmm. And we found an app where you can give everybody however many ping pong balls you want them to have, So if it's random, then you could give ping pong balls for all kinds of things, to keep the league active. Every time you make a trade, you get a ping pong ball. Every time you know what I'm saying? Every time you do something, let's say you make a qualifying post on the message board, you get a ping pong ball.
Okay.
So that it's the end of the year. Huh?
And you attract that throughout the all the time.
You just add them up. So at the end of the year, let's say you've accumulated 42 ping pong balls, and that's 10 more than everybody else. That's 10 more shots you have at getting the number 1 pick next year to pick the slot you draft at. You know what I'm saying? It's a way to compete without giving money or taking away anything out of the main pot or whatever. So, but it's also a way to keep you active, to where, hey, I lost Chris. His internet died. Luckily, we were done. Chris is not out there. Well, Chris did not join us at the beginning, and I'm not going to ask Lou to come on to end this. Luckily, it looks like we were about done anyway. That was episode 6 of the Perfect Fantasy Football League settings. And, we've really gone through all of it from the teams. Wait, I got you back. I thought maybe your router and internet kicked, or did you just hit a wrong?
Hit the wrong button again.
Oh, now you. Oh,
I keep scrolling around with stuff, man.
All right. Well, I was finishing the show anyway. A couple quick announcements because of vacation I have coming up. Chris, I've confirmed because of the roundtable last night and doing a few things. There's going to be no shows the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
So the roundtable, which is my Tuesday night show, and this show Fantasy Fan Sportscast, just because next week is the 4th of July and on week, and I have vacation that I have over the next 2 weeks, and I'm not going anywhere, which some people went, we're going to do a show. Well, we're still working with my father-in-law. We're going to spend time down with him and help him get paperwork. We're going to do some things because of the 4th and the long weekend and that. But during the week, we're going to be spending time, with him and doing some things. So it's just going to be easier for me to just come right out and say, you know what, for 2 weeks, Easy is going to go on vacation. Andrea talked about maybe she was going to do a roundtable show. So there still might be a roundtable show. It just won't be me. And I just, I didn't want to, my point was I wasn't going to have time probably to, I might even be here next Wednesday at 10 o'clock going, I should have done a show. But at the same time, I know I probably won't have time to prepare and do a lot of stuff anyway. So
no, totally understand. We'll actually be out on vacation next week anyway.
Okay.
I was going to take my stuff with me, but podcast on the road, but
back to again, I did play that again the other day. Our very first podcast where you did it from Boston, I think.
Yeah.
On your earbuds with a clicking noise for the whole hour.
Yeah. I was in Baltimore. I was in Baltimore last year.
We sounded terrible. We gave great advice.
We always do.
Right. For our first time, we gave great advice. That's hard to believe that was over. I mean, it's been
almost 18 months ago.
18, 19 months ago. Kevin, welcome to the chat room here at the end. I think Kevin's saying no, like he's upset we're not going to have a show.
Yeah, that's going to be terrible.
And well-deserved. I'm not sure I deserve any time off, but I'm taking it. I don't know, so. And that's why I wanted to wrap up this show and get the thing setting, because obviously here's the other good thing. When we come back, we'll be ready. I mean, football starts. I mean,
yes.
Late in July, things will be going on. We'll tie a bow on this. I'm not sure we'll call it episode 7, but we'll have it in writing.
Yes. And
really the last thing we have to do is that selections of people who we're going to put in our league. We've decided this is going to be a league. This is going to be the Fantasy Fan Invitational.
Yes.
This is no volunteer. This is no,
serious business.
And you know what? F those podcasts that make you write in a funny story or tell a joke. No. We're going to just invite you if we want you. It's that simple.
Okay.
It is that simple.
Whew.
Are we going to be particular? Are we going to be picky? Are we going to be, oh, hell yes.
Probably, yeah.
We're now, Kevin, I'm sure he only came into Hawaii. So, he's been, Kevin's been.
He has his spot. We've already established that.
Okay, you can say established, and we've wavered that way a little bit.
Okay,
but I'm just saying, this is an invitational.
Gotcha.
You know what? Go to your mailbox every day for the next couple of months to find out if you're in the Fantasy Fan Invitational League. That's going to have the most perfect settings because, Chris, we spent 6 weeks.
Right. And so now it's time to go on a vacation.
Exactly.
Let everybody stew on those rules. And then by the time we come back, they're ready to go.
Those rules.
Yes.
Yeah. There you go. So, and then football starts. So when we come back from vacation, bam, a Fantasy Fan Sportcast, which at Lonnie Melnick, FantasySports.com, they love the football talk. But luckily, they'll put up with me anyway. So,
sure.
Chris, thanks for joining me today. We went a little over. You came on a little late. Sorry about that. But
no, I came on late, and it's our last show before we sign off for the next couple of weeks. So we ran a little long. It's okay.
Right. And you got to meet Lou, my other fantasy girlfriend.
Yeah, love that.
My Sunday sit-start partner, and we have a good time. It's a fun show. I can't wait to do that. So, Chris, where can we find you? What's going on? Where can they find you for Twitter so they can follow you for the next couple weeks since we will not be here?
Absolutely. So you can follow me on Twitter at Chris Allen FFWX. I've got a mock draft, a dynasty mock draft Superflex that just came out. The mock draft review just put that out. I think it was last week with Fantrax. This week I've got a fantasy football settings piece that I've got coming out for 4for4. So it actually runs right in line with what we're discussing here. So I took it took a little bit of an analytical approach to looking to adding Superflex to your league, tight end premium, points per reception, like all that type of stuff. So that should be, I put it in today. I've got the editors looking at it. So hopefully that'll be out by this weekend. Podcasting. So I mentioned earlier, we just had Bob Lung on the show earlier today to talk about running backs. We had Mark Schofield. He works with Matt Waldman for the rookie scouting portfolio and does quarterback evaluations. We talked with him last week, so that episode should be dropping on Monday. Already had Matt Harmon's episode that dropped this past Monday. So had a great time talking with him.
The name of that podcast?
Dynasty Owner's Manual. So go ahead and check that out and subscribe. We're doing that positional piece. And then actually you'll see me on Twitter a little bit as I'm out. We're actually, the wife and I were headed down to New Orleans, and I'm actually going to have the opportunity to sit down with nobody other than Sigmund Bloom while I'm down in New Orleans.
Are you going to go on the couch?
I'm not going to be on the couch. We're just going to go out and have a couple of drinks and just talk and whatnot. And I'll get to, get some of his insight for the great fantasy analyst that he is, because it's time for us to take a vacation. He's taking a vacation. He's going on vacation for the next couple of weeks before vacation.
A lot of fantasy football guys, a lot of fantasy football analysts take these next 2 or 3 weeks off anyway, just because July, the end of July, boom, everybody, the camps are in, things are happening. Drafts are happening. We're a month and a, some drafts are happening now, but the mainstream drafts will be happening.
And Scott Fishbowl, of course. Why did I not talk about that? I'm in that. This is my 3rd year in a row. I'm in SFB, and so that draft will actually happen in, I believe, in a couple of weeks.
Right.
I'm
looking forward to that. For you. I'm rooting for you.
We'll see how it goes, man. We'll see.
It's not the Fantasy Fan Invitational.
It's not.
It's just a fishbowl. But I'm still rooting for you. You're my man. All right. This has been Easy Kill. Lenny Melnick, FantasySports.com, Legend Sports Network. Kevin, just because you've been in the chat room, Kevin now does a show Mondays at 2, Thursdays at 3, that he does from Hawaii. Great job there. And Doug was also in the chat room. Doug Boyle does the Dugout show on Saturdays at noon here at Lenny Melnick, FantasySports.com.
I love that name.
And then Lou is on all the time. So Lou that joined us earlier today. So
that band's everywhere.
So thanks for joining us, everybody. We will see you. I didn't even check a calendar, but I just know 3 Tuesdays from today, somewhere down the road, we will have it posted somewhere. I'll be in the chat room, and we'll go from there. Lenny Melnick should be back tomorrow at 9. And then, like I said, Arnie at 10, Lou at 11. So it'll be a busy day tomorrow with baseball. A lot of baseball. Man, I am banging on baseball too. I'm competitive. I'm doing good. So I gotta keep up with that. So Chris, thanks for tweaking that router for me tonight and showing up. I appreciate the effort, and we'll see you. Thanks for coming out, and Chris, say goodnight.
This has been Just a Fantasy Fan podcast, and to keep your fantasies going, follow us at justafantasyfan.com. Say goodnight. Good night.
Maybe.